Remember that scene from the social network where Mark Zuckerberg is glued to his laptop, pulling data from Harvard's system to build Face Mash? While it was controversial, it showed one thing very clearly: data is power. Now, whenever we hear words like data or analytics, our brain immediately jumps to data science, AI, or machine learning. But if that's what you think data engineering is, you are totally wrong. Data engineering is much more than that. It's about building the entire foundation that makes data science even possible. Collecting information from different sources, cleaning it, storing it in the right systems, and making sure it's available in real time for businesses to use. Okay, right now this may sound like a lot, but don't worry. By the time I'm done explaining the roles and responsibilities of a data engineer and the skills you need to become one, you'll be all set to step into a career that is in high demand. This is a No BS Data Engineer Roadmap for 2025. So, what exactly is data engineering? Say a normal software system is designed to handle transactions like booking tickets or making payments. But a data engineering system is designed to handle information at scale. Imagine a company like Netflix wants to recommend the perfect movie for you. For that, they need clean, reliable, and fast moving data. But where does this data come from and how does it become usable? That's where data engineers step in. They act like the middlemen between raw, messy information and the teams who actually use it, like data scientists, analysts, or even business managers. Now that we understand what exactly is data engineering, let's get started with our step one, which is to build foundational knowledge. And in data engineering, this starts with programming skills. Programming is the language that allows you to talk to data and machines. Among all the options, Python is the most widely recommended because of its simplicity and the vast number of libraries built for handling data. You may also come across languages like Java, Scala, or Go, but Python will be your strongest ally as a beginner. Once you've got a handle on basic coding, it's time to strengthen your problem solving ability with data structures and algorithms. Data structures like arrays, linked lists, tags, and queues help you organize information efficiently, while algorithms guide you in processing it logically. Alongside this, you'll also explore SQL, the backbone of database interaction. Beyond this, you should build a solid foundation in Linux basics since most large scale data systems run on Linux servers. Add to that a basic understanding of networking fundamentals and distributed systems, and you will start to see how the internet moves information around and how massive data sets are handled across multiple machines. Together, these make up your starting toolkit, the essentials every data engineer leans on before diving deeper. Moving on to step 2, which is to understand the data engineering lifecycle. Now that you've built your foundational skills, it's time to zoom out and see the bigger picture of what data engineering actually involves. The data engineering lifecycle is all about how raw information travels from its source to a form where it can be actually be used by analysts. It starts with data generation. This is where data is created, be it through apps, websites, or IoT devices. For example, every time you place an order on Swiggy or book a ride on Uber, new data points are being generated in real time. Next comes data storage. With billions of such transactions happening daily, companies need a reliable way to store this massive flow of information. This is where databases and storage solutions come in. But storage alone isn't enough. That's why the third stage, that is data ingestion, is so important. This is the process of collecting and transporting data from multiple sources into a central system where it can be organized and processed. It's like pulling data from logs, APIs, or mobile applications and then loading it into a warehouse for analysis. Finally, there's data serving. This is where the processed data is made available in a usable form, whether that's for dashboards or machine learning models. Then comes our step 3, which is to understand sources of data and database fundamentals. Now that you've seen how data lifecycle works, the next step is to look at where all this data actually comes from and how it's stored at the most basic level. Let's start with sources and data. In today's world, information is generated everywhere. Think of databases. Every e-commerce order, every banking transaction, every student record in a university is stored in some form of a database. Then there are APIs, which act like digital messengers, allowing systems to exchange data. For example, when Zomato pulls real-time location details from Google Maps, it's done via an API. We also have logs, which are like digital diaries that record every single event happening inside a system. They're critical when you want to understand what went wrong or track user behavior. Another huge source is mobile applications, be it sending a WhatsApp message or scrolling through Instagram. But collecting this information isn't as simple as just grabbing everything you see. That's where data collection considerations come in. You need to think about what kind of data you actually need, how often it should be collected, and whether it's structured, like rows and columns in Excel, or unstructured, like videos, images, or text. Making the right choices here saves time, money, and effort later down the pipeline. At this stage, you learn concepts like data normalization and data modeling techniques, where you design how data should be structured and related. Then comes the CAP theorem. It explains that a database can only guarantee two out of three things at the same time: consistency, availability, and partition tolerance. Finally, you'll come across OLTP versus OLAP. OLTP stands for Online Transaction Processing, and it is designed for everyday transactions like swiping your card at a store. OLAP, on the other hand, is Online Analytical Processing, and it is built for analyzing historical data to generate insights like spotting sales trends over the last 5 years. Then comes a step 4, which is understanding relational databases and NoSQL databases. These are the two main categories of storage systems you will be working with: relational and NoSQL databases. Let's start with relational databases. These are the traditional, most widely used systems where data is stored in tables with rows and columns, very much like an Excel sheet, but on a much larger and more powerful scale. For example, if you're storing e-commerce data, you could have one table for customers, another for orders, and another for products, and all of them can be connected through keys. Here, the most important skill you need is SQL, or Structured Query Language. Popular relational databases include MySQL, MariaDB, Oracle, AuroraDB, and MS SQL. But not all data fits neatly into rows and columns. That's where NoSQL databases come in. These are designed for dealing with unstructured or semi-structured data like social media posts, IoT sensor readings, or even entire documents. NoSQL databases come in different types depending on the use case. Document-based databases like MongoDB and CouchDB are great for storing JSON-like documents, and graph databases such as Neo4j are useful when relationships are the key. There are others as well based on column and key value, as you can see on your screen. Moving on to step 5, which is all about data warehousing. This is a critical part of managing and analyzing large amounts of data. Data warehousing brings together data from different sources and organizes it, making it easier to analyze. It's like a central hub where data is stored, cleaned, and structured so you can answer important business questions. This helps teams access information quickly and make informed decisions. For example, a retail company might combine sales data, customer interactions, and inventory information to identify trends and improve customer service. There are several architectures for setting up a data warehouse. Some common ones include data marts, which are smaller, specialized storage areas for specific departments, and then we have data mesh, which decentralizes data ownership across teams. Other architectures like Data Fabric or Data Hub focus on improving how data is connected and accessed throughout the organization. You'll also come across cloud-based data warehouses like Google BigQuery, Snowflake, and Amazon Redshift. These solutions scale easily with your business, allow faster querying, and reduce infrastructure cost. Then there are data lakes like Databricks Delta Lake or OneHouse. A data lake is like a giant storage pool that can hold all kinds of raw data, structured, semi-structured, or unstructured. Next, step 6, cloud computing. This plays a major role in storing, processing, and managing data efficiently. Cloud computing allows businesses to access powerful computing resources over the internet instead of relying on physical servers. This helps organizations scale quickly, reduce costs, and improve collaboration without having to invest in expensive infrastructure. There are a few key areas you should focus on in this step. First is cloud architectures, which refers to how cloud services are structured. This includes compute services, storage options, and databases that make it easy to run applications and manage data in the cloud. Next, you'll explore the major cloud providers like AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. Each provider offers a comprehensive suite of tools that simplify data management. For example, AWS provides services like EC2 for computing and S3 for storage, while Azure offers virtual machines and blob storage. Google Cloud gives you compute engines and advanced data pipelines. By familiarizing yourself with these platforms, you'll understand how to set up environments that are cost effective and easy to scale as your data grows. Cloud computing also connects closely with data ingestion and data pipelines. Ingesting data from multiple sources and processing it efficiently requires cloud services that can handle high volumes and speed. You'll work with batch processing or real time data streams depending on the requirements. Data pipelines built on cloud infrastructure allow you to extract, transform, and load data seamlessly into storage or analytic tools. There are other aspects to be aware of as well. ETL tools like Glue or Data Factory help automate the data preparation process, while cloud security ensures that sensitive information is protected through encryption and access controls. Serverless architectures let you run applications without worrying about managing servers, and metadata management helps track data lineage and ensure data quality. Finally, the last step with this roadmap, step 7, which is all about data ingestion and data pipelines. Data ingestion is the process of collecting data from various sources and bringing it into a system where it can be stored and processed. There are a few common types of data ingestion you should know. Like batch processing involves gathering data over a period and processing it at once. Streaming and real-time ingestion, on the other hand, allow data to be processed instantly as it arrives. Hybrid approaches combine both these methods depending on the nature of the data and the use case. Once the data is ingested, it flows through data pipelines. These pipelines automate the movement, transformation, and storage of data. The core of any data pipeline is the ETL process, which stands for extract, transform, and load. First, data is extracted from source systems. Next, it's cleaned, structured, or combined during the transformation phase. Finally, the prepared data is loaded into storage or analytics platforms where it can be accessed by the other teams. There are many tools that help build and manage these pipelines. Apache Airflow is a popular choice for scheduling and orchestrating. Workflows.dbt helps transform data by writing analytics code that's easy to test and maintain. Luigi and Prefect offer other powerful frameworks to ensure data pipelines are robust and scalable. That was a 7-step roadmap to help you get started in your journey. But there are a few more important areas you should be aware of as you move forward as a data engineer. These topics are built on what you have already learned and help you manage data more effectively and securely. First, big data tools. They give you the frameworks needed to handle large data sets. Tools like Apache Spark and Hadoop ecosystem allow you to process data in parallel, making tasks faster and more scalable. Containerization tools like Docker and orchestration platforms such as Google Kubernetes Engine help manage deployments in cloud environments. Then comes data serving. This is about making data available to users and applications quickly and reliably. Whether you're working with dashboards, APIs, or machine learning models, serving data efficiently ensures that insights can be acted upon in real time. Then comes security. This is a crucial layer that protects sensitive information. Authentication and authorization processes control who can access data. Encryption methods ensure that data is secure during transfer and storage. Then we have data governance, which focuses on managing the integrity and usability of data. It includes practices like tracking data quality, managing metadata, and ensuring that data is accurate and traceable. Finally, privacy is essential in today's world of data-driven decision-making. Regulations like GDPR, CCPA, and EU Act set standards for how data should be collected, stored, and used. Now, you can learn all the skills we just talked about with Intellipaat's data engineering program in collaboration with MIT MicroMasters. This program covers everything from cloud computing basics and big data tools to data pipelines, data serving, security, and governance, giving you a complete practical and industry-ready skill set. You'll work on real projects, learn from experts with years of experience, and get the support you need every step of the way. The best part is you don't need any entrance exams or prior certifications to enroll. All you need is the drive to learn and take the next step in your data engineering career. Check out the link in the description to learn more and get started today. You'll also find the detailed roadmap there, helping you stay on track as you build your skills. I hope this video helps you on your journey to becoming a data engineer. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.